And we are live. So, welcome to episode 125 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got returning Sydney from the Cinema Cities podcast. And I always appreciate it when she takes the time to stop in and hang out and talk some films. So welcome back.
Thanks for having me. You always give me really great films to watch.
You know, I was on here yesterday talking about Brett Ratner's Red Dragon. And I was saying that, it's a movie that no one talks about. But then I said, this is now 125 movies, most of which no one ever talks about. People have either never heard of them or they just don't talk about them and they just get overlooked. And there are tons of movies out there like that. I think that the shows or the films that I talk about on this program, though, on this podcast, tend to be really fantastic, though. And as I move now fully into the second year, I'm picking up this phrase that I appreciate very much that says, character is king. Characterization. That's what I'm looking for. I don't care if it's a horror movie. I don't care if it's a sci-fi movie. I don't care if it's an action thriller, a crime drama, or in this case, a Western, which is not a movie that, I typically take on here. But that's what I'm looking for now. And this movie, it certainly has plenty of that. I'm talking about Scott Cooper's Hostiles. So if you're ready to go, shall we get it going?
Let's go.
Boogie woogie. So, Hostiles is written and directed by Scott Cooper. And Scott Cooper directed some films that I really liked. He directed Black Mass, which was the Johnny Depp crime drama about Whitey Bulger, where he played the South Boston Mafia king. He directed another sort of country Western drama that you may have heard of called Crazy Heart.
Yeah, I've heard of the Black Mass too.
Black Mass is pretty good. I'm a little over mafia movies at this point. I find that they sort of glamorize crime, which I don't really, and a lot of people are. Have you watched that movie? It doesn't glamorize crime. I'm like, really? Who's the cool person in all of well, never mind. That's a whole other conversation. He also did. He directed Crazy Heart, which is a movie that I like a great deal with Jeff Bridges and Maggie Gyllenhaal. And then most recently, he made an attempt at horror with a movie that I wanted to like very much called Antlers, which, it felt kind of flat. I was very disappointed because it was a movie that I very much thought was going to be great. This movie, however, I feel is probably the movie that he is least known for. And it's probably, well, maybe not, maybe Antlers is, but this is his best effort. I saw this film, I think I was flying out of Tokyo or something like that. And I just, what's on the flight, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what is this? Because I wasn't living in America at the time. I'm like, oh, Christian Bale did a Western. Okay, let me check this out. And I was just riveted to the screen. For 2 hours and 10 minutes or however long it lasted. I couldn't believe what I was watching. And I just watched it again I finished it up about an hour before we went on. So you're seeing it again, like Hell or High Water for the first time. Give me some of your initial thoughts.
Oh, so like you said, I was riveted from the very, very first scene. I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was a mature film, an intelligent
Yeah.
film. I think writer director Scott Cooper definitely has had a vision for this film, and he executed it across the entire 2 hours. You
Yeah.
definitely saw that there is a master director
Yeah.
who knew what he was doing and made an adult movie
Yeah.
that was full of nuance and great performances, beautiful cinematography. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen cinematography of the West like that recently in modern films, and
Yeah.
I can't even give you another modern film. I think of Terrence Malick. I think of like the
Yeah.
scenery in Malick films. That's how I
Yeah.
kind of felt with this film. And
Yeah.
I think there's the deeper message of like that old West and the new West, the old
Yeah.
ways and the new ways all clashing. And I definitely am putting this on the list of one of my favorite films because I sat with it and then I went back and I watched it again today after you told me you were gonna watch it. So I didn't get to finish it, but I started it again, and I think my appreciation grew even deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember immediately once the plane landed, wherever it was or wherever I got back when I got home, uh, I ended up purchasing it on on Blu-ray. So if you have an opportunity to watch this right now, it's currently streaming on Hulu for anybody in the stream or anyone who's going to watch it in the replay. Um, you can catch it on Hulu. I would strongly encourage. I'm a huge fan of physical media, so purchasing it and
Yeah.
owning it yourself because digital libraries are very fickle in these times. Things change from month to month. And for whatever reason, so having it in your hand, eliminates that kind of concern. It's a movie about a lot of things. It's a movie about war,
Yeah.
and what it's done to the winners and the losers, in such a way that it makes you wonder. And I know this is going to sound cliche. Did anyone actually win that? Because the people that participated did such horrible things to each other, that they're all just kind of broken. Um, where Christian Bale talks about, when we put our heads down out here, we're all prisoners. No one's free. But it's also a movie about forgiveness. Otherwise, it would just be a straight war movie, which it's not, because the war is over by the time the film has started, in a majority sense. It's about reconciliation and the ability or the willingness to accept the ways and lives of other people. Um, Extremely beautiful film, extremely underrated. I don't know how this film did not, clean up at the Academy Awards. It seems to have, or at any of the major awards ceremonies or festivals, or any of those sorts of things. But you brought up an interesting point in that it's a mature film,
Yes.
and that's a rare thing nowadays. In an era of cheap laughs, huge 250 million dollar budgets, and huge CGIs, these sorts of things, to actually have a mature adult film with adult themes, great characterization, just a very lean script. This movie didn't get the greatest critical reception, and I want to get into that in a little bit. I don't think people in this society today, in this culture today, know what to do with a film like this.
I did read a lot of reviews because I did want to see what the consensus was from the
Yeah,
critics.
yeah,
And it seems that they were split. I think some critics were very harsh with on the film. I think I read a review in the Atlantic saying that it was cliched, and I didn't find it cliched at all.
no,
I didn't find any. Yeah, it was not a cliched western. I mean,
no, no. This was original content as far as I was
yeah,
concerned.
yeah, and I
Um,
mean, obviously, when you're working with any genre, there are going to be some cliches, but it's the way that you work them and subvert people's expectations with them.
Yeah. And
So
it could just as easily be that, with the mentality that comes out of literary publications nowadays, if you don't subvert expectations in the way that they anticipate or think that they should be subverted, then it's not a good film.
yeah, but the New York Times was very, I mean, New York Times, the Roger Ebert website, I remember they were very complimentary. And a couple of them were just like, how did this one slip out of Oscar contention? But someone made a really good point, and I don't remember who it was. And he said, this might not be something we look at today, but this will definitely something 30, 40 years from now that people will start talking about.
I was thinking that exact thing. I was like, this movie is ahead of its time.
Yeah.
People aren't necessarily ready for this. Hold on a second. Let's see what we've got here. It says on this is just from Wiki real quick. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 71% based on 225 reviews with a weighted average of 6.8 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, Hostiles benefits from stunning visuals and a solid central performance from Christian Bale, both of which help elevate its uneven story. I don't even know what that means. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted score of 65 out of 100 based on 41 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale, while Post-Track reported filmgoers gave it an overall 72%. Let's see. The Wrap wrote of the audience's reaction to the film, saying, riveted by the glorious storytelling of Hostiles, a few Telluride audience members burst into spontaneous applause as it built to its conclusion. Todd McCarthy of The Hollywood Reporter wrote praise for the film and the performance of Christian Bale, concluding that the film is an estimable piece of work grounded by a fine-grained sensibility and an expertly judged lead performance. Okay, no problem. Most of the criticism of the film was aimed at its writer-director, Scott Cooper. William Bibbiani of IGN, well, that's IGN, so they take that with a grain of salt, said that Cooper wasted the talent of its actors and cinematography in a, quote, by-the-numbers storyline with a rather obvious message about how it's harder to be despicable to people after you get to know them. He went on to say Scott Cooper directs Hostiles with an eye for quote-unquote greatness, but the actual material simply isn't deep enough to justify the solemn presentation. What is wrong with this man? It's not entertaining. It's not illuminating. It's not even complicated. It's mostly just a bummer. I bet this guy loved Thor, Love and Thunder.
Wow. That doesn't even sound, that sounds like that's to stir up controversy, because there's no way you could watch this movie and believe any of that.
Could be a hot take.
I think it might be a hot take.
The National Congress of American Indians lauded Hostiles for its authentic representation of Native peoples and accurate rendition of Native American languages. Sorry about that. Turn that off. Writing in The Atlantic, David Sims was critical of the, quote, harsh and uncompromising tone of the classic revisionist Western, describing the opening scene as gory, tough to watch, and short on dialogue, with Cooper intent on showing a world severely lacking in empathy.
Okay, but that's the world that these people lived in.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the expectation was. I mean, I thought that this was a really realistic representation of the brutality of frontier life, opening up in the very first scene with this naive family who basically decides to build a home in the middle of a war zone. You know, and that's basically what Scott Cooper said. He said, you know, any war zone could have a story like this, whether it's the Democratic, you know, whether it's the Congo in the 1930s or Vietnam in the 1970s or Afghanistan in 2010. Yeah. You know, but you've just got these naive people who have set up their home. I mean, it's insane when you start to think about it, but when you really do think about it, you're like, that's what frontier life must have been.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what? I don't think that's fair. I mean, yes, it's a movie and it's dramatized, but it's also dramatized from actual people who live these experiences. So to say the violence is whatever he said about the violence, I mean, I don't know. That sort of is very. That's a disheartening review because that means that's why I always take critics with a whatever. The critic
I,
has their
I
opinion.
yeah,
I
I make
read
up
them
my own mind.
sometimes. Yeah, I make up my own mind. The critics have their opinion. I like to see what they say, but at the end of the day, I'm going to make up my own mind about what I like and what I don't like, and why I like it and why I don't like it.
Yeah, it could very well be that people wanted to see more of a bury my heart at wounded knee kind of narrative in
Hmm.
this thing, but it wasn't about that. And I thought that that was actually very refreshing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
I
mean,
said that. I wrote that down. I said this movie, although heartbreaking, was refreshing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I saw something completely different, and it could just be very easy to do. Well, the poor Native Americans, look how they're being piled upon. This has happened to them, that has happened to them. The bad, Americans or the bad whites or whatever, this, that, or the other. This movie starts out in the opposite direction with a white family essentially being butchered within the first 5 minutes
Right.
of the movie. Men, children, babies. Rosamund Pike goes from teaching her two daughters adverbs at the kitchen table to having her whole family massacred in like a real life span of 5 minutes.
Yep.
And you're like, how is this happening? I mean, and they've got this man who's, the husband and the father, and he's clearly an idiot because why would you take your family out there?
But that's what people
That's
did.
yeah, that's insane. We covered a similar movie, about that. It was a horror movie called Robert Eggers' The Witch. If you've ever
Oh
seen
yeah, I
it,
love that movie. Yes, I love
yeah,
that movie.
and that father, he can't hunt, he can't farm, he can't trap, he can't fish, but he decides to break away from the community and lead his family basically into the woods where they die. And this man is kind of the same. Um, he's in no condition to take on any of those people.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, that's what frontier life must have been like. And he's
Yeah.
got no community. He's out there completely by himself. He's got one rifle. It's insane.
And they're
And
were they Apache?
they were
Is that what they
Comanche,
said? Comanche? Okay.
Who were an extremely warlike
Yeah.
um, native tribe. And in this setting, it seems that the Indian wars are largely over, except for the people who just absolutely refuse
Right. They're
to
like
capitulate.
marauding groups. But then
Yeah,
there's also other marauding groups, and that's the whole point. It's like the title is hostiles, but the word applies to almost everyone in the movie.
yeah, yeah.
The fur
Because
trappers, the rogue Comanche, the soldiers, the native and indigenous people at
the
before when they were
Cheyenne.
warring, the Cheyenne, yeah, all of them. Even
Yeah,
even the farmer out there because he's on land that wasn't his land, land that's been conquered and taken over.
yeah. He's just parked himself in the middle of these people's. Like if someone just went into your backyard and started building a house.
Yeah, so
And they're
it's
like, no, that's not
ambiguous.
going to fly. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I'm saying yeah, but the word hostiles it applies to. You think when you're going into the movie, you've got a mindset maybe one way about what that title refers to,
Yeah,
and you're coming out of that movie and you're just like, it's everybody.
yeah. Everyone is a killer.
Yeah,
Everyone is a killer. Everyone has a very stony kind of heart. And everyone is extremely damaged
yes. Oh
by
my
its
gosh,
after effects.
The PTSD was everywhere in this movie. And like
Yeah,
all these people are suffering right now. This is
yeah,
trauma everywhere.
yeah. So you see Rosamund Pike's entire family get wiped out. And when that baby got shot, I couldn't
Oh
believe it. I
yeah,
couldn't. I'm like, did they just kill the baby? Because like they don't show it overtly, and then maybe a minute later you see the blankets start to fill up with the blood, and you're like, oh my god, you're like these people. Scott Cooper is really going for it.
yeah,
It's disturbing to watch, but it's fantastic. You can't not watch it. It's just train wreck after train wreck after train wreck, and then you get to Christian Bale, who's Captain Joe, Captain Blocker, and they're in the middle of recapturing what look to be Apaches, and that's just horrible.
yeah. They're brutalizing the family, the native
Yeah,
family.
yeah, they're roping that one man, and
Hmm.
just dragging him by his neck, and then they're dragging him by two sets of ropes, and the woman is just screaming her head off, his wife or whatever, and that's just awful. But what really got me was the look on Christian Bale's face, like he's almost bored.
Yeah, he's been there, done that before. This is
Yeah,
nothing new to him.
yeah, he's just indifferent. Like he's not even looking. Like this awful thing is happening, and he's just like, I think he's actually eating a lemon. And you're like, holy, like who are these people? It's just these calloused over. And there's that great quote in the very beginning from D.H. Lawrence: "The essential American soul is hard, isolate, stoic, and a killer. It has never yet melted." And there's just nothing more appropriate than, that statement for this movie on both sides, or for
Yeah,
almost every character in it. Um, I mean, he's reading the commentaries of Julius Caesar, which, if you've read it, I mean, it's a really good read. But I mean, Caesar is essentially glossing over his campaigns and then his return to Rome, and he's essentially glossing over like slaughtering all the Gauls and the Celts. It is about a genocide. And, are you there?
yeah. I'm right here. I'm listening.
Okay, okay. So I mean, it's just, I mean, it's the exposition is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even by the end, we've got Rosamund Pike's Rosalie is picking up a gun, shooting at people
Yeah, yeah,
because she's been through so much. Her experience has hardened her to the point where she's
yeah,
ready to kill somebody.
yeah. And just as easily could have gone the other way, because her journey is, it might be the most awful in the film.
Yeah, and she kills it. I mean, she had. I mean, I think I cried. I cried in this movie a number of times, but she like got me. She got my heart when she was burying those her children, trying to dig that grave with her
It's,
hands.
oh
Oh my
yeah.
god.
And then she doesn't know how to use the shovel.
Yeah. But you're
She
out there
doesn't
on the
know to put her
frontier.
foot down in it. Yeah, she doesn't know. Like it just goes to show how naive they are.
Yeah.
They know they have no business being out there whatsoever. And they've paid, but they didn't deserve that.
Oh no.
But she's just paid this awful, awful price. You've got Sergeant Metz. I like this guy, but it's
Yeah.
again, you could feel the PTSD rolling off this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the 19th century, they've taken his firearms away from him, and what
Yeah.
they call the melancholia. And he's just drinking and drinking, and the whiskey's like falling out of his beard. As he's telling that story to Christian Bale about, they're sitting there recounting the story about how Christian Bale basically got disemboweled,
Yeah.
with like a spear in the gut, and they're just talking about it like, hey, remember that time we went fishing, or something like that. This is the reality from these people.
I think they called it the good old days
Yeah,
when they're telling the story. Yeah, they're like the good
yeah,
old days.
yeah. Those were good days.
Yeah.
Those were good days. Cut
And I
the
think
when Chris.
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No,
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 I was
no.
gonna say, I was gonna say I think, and when they were saying those were the good days, I think they were referring to the fact that in those, when the war was on, they knew what their job was.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, we're going to go, we're going to do this, we can slaughter, we can kill. That's our job. And now they've moved on. It's 1892 now, and you just can't go slaughtering in, you know, the natives that you're transporting or taking someplace. It's like the rules have changed, but they're still
Yeah.
affected by the way they played the game before.
Yeah, well, they're much older, and I've heard that, I mean, that's why, the military gets you when you're 18 or 19, when that, frontal cortex of your brain isn't fully developed, so you're not going to think, you're just going to do,
Yeah.
because if you recruited people in their 40s, they're like, wait, you want me to do what?
Right.
That's crazy, so now, years later, I mean, and these were participants in the Wounded Knee Massacre.
Yeah.
So these guys have been doing dark, dark things,
Yeah.
and now later in life, it's come back to haunt them because things have largely slowed down and they've turned into jailers.
Yeah.
There's no war to fight anymore. So they have nothing to do but, catch the occasional person who runs away and think.
Yeah, and the idea of the savage, you know, has changed because there's that scene where they make it to the fort and they're having dinner with the wife of the captain of the fort, and she's saying,
Oh,
"Oh, we've got to, you know, the children don't have clothes and there's no food and this and that," and it's like, you know, so the idea, like, these guys were told that these people are savages, and now people are saying, no, we've got to do right by these people, we've taken their land. It's like, well, I can't, how are they adjusting their worldview? Some of them can't adjust their worldview.
right. And I thought Rosamund Pike was going to strangle that woman
I did too. Oh my god.
at the table because it's a very interesting dynamic, like with that journalist. He's
Yeah.
got, I guess, what you would consider like a liberal, sort of kind-hearted, progressive, view. Whereas the military and Christian Bale, he kind of has a real hard view of these sorts of things. So it's based on each of their individual experiences.
Right.
Because you also find out that Wes Studi's character, Yellow Hawk, I mean, those guys were killers as well. It was a war, and not everybody holds with the view necessarily that everything is forgiven,
Right.
and that that you would have to admit that you did something wrong,
Right.
and if you have to admit that you did something wrong, then why did all my friends die?
Yeah. And that brings in Ben Foster's character, who is the
Wills.
Wills, right. So he has slaughtered a family with a hatchet, which
Yeah.
is, you know, and he says, and he has been, I think he was with Captain Joe, Christian Bale, before. They'd been in war together and comrades. And he says to him, it's like, you could be me. You know, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
You're no better than I am. You're a killer too.
He's a much darker version of Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And again, he stole every scene.
Yeah.
I thought he stole. You're just riveted by what a scumbag he is.
Yeah.
Because yes, Christian. What I got out of it, and maybe you feel differently. What I got out of it was that Christian Bale did those things, but he did those things in a time of war.
Yeah.
Now the war is over. I don't want to have to do this other mission, but this is my job.
Yeah.
Whereas this man, the war is over, but he's still out attacking people and murdering them with axes. He's killing women, he's killing children. The war is over with. So, Wills has not been able to turn it off.
Yeah.
And he's a really, really contemptible character. And it's Ben Foster, and I love to see it.
He's good at it.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. He's in it for what, maybe 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
But he really provides the contrast in things. because I mean, even initially, because I mean, basically what they're doing is they're taking Wes Studi back to Montana because he's dying of cancer, even though he was a major adversary of Christian Bale's during the war. But immediately, I mean, they're just set upon by those the people that killed Rosamund Pike's family.
Yeah.
And so almost immediately they have to start working together to survive. It's just, it's such a great movie.
It's so good.
One of my favorite characters was Corporal Woodson.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
He
Yeah.
was
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah. He's like I almost want to say he's like the moral center of the group. He's just steady. He's focused. You're getting exposition through him. Through the religious ties and the songs that he's singing. About guide me.
Yeah.
These sorts of things, just letting you know that they're all just sort of lost out there. He was one of my favorite characters in the whole movie.
Yeah, and that scene, so when he gets shot and then they end up leaving him at the fort and he has that scene with Christian Bale, I was crying. That was one of my favorite scenes. I had tears just streaming down. They played that scene so well. I mean, the entire cast is stacked with like great performers. And that scene though was beautiful.
Another thing that whoever that idiot was from IGN or whatever may not have liked, and we talked about this again with Hell or High Water, these are not modern men.
No.
This is not a modern kind of man thing where, people are going to talk about their feelings. This man is going to say, Metz is going to say, they've taken my guns. They say I've got the melancholia, where instead you can read that he's like you said, you could feel the PTSD coming off of him.
Yeah.
But all he's saying is, they say I've got the melancholia. And then what does his best friend say to him? There's no such thing. So if you're looking for, some sort of modern take on things, this isn't the movie for you. It was the same way with Hell or High Water. These people have this truncated sort of shorthand that's very calloused, where they just say the bare minimum, or, if Christian Bale's getting, gutted by a lance in the stomach, they're going to say those were good days.
Yeah.
And that takes, I think, a certain maturity to be able to appreciate.
Yeah.
That isn't something you get in modern films nowadays. This movie is, in many ways, this movie is ahead of its time, but it's also a throwback.
Yes. Yeah. It's modern, and it's a modern Western and a classic Western at the same time.
Yeah. When Metz is talking to the lieutenant, and the lieutenant tells him that he just killed someone for the first time during that that native raid. Yeah, Jesse Clemens. Yeah. And Metz tells him he killed somebody when he was 14 years old. He was fighting for the Greys. He goes, you just get used to it, to the point where you just don't, it doesn't even bother you anymore.
Yeah.
You kill enough people, you'll get to the point where it just doesn't bother you anymore, which, you're not exactly sure is the truth, because clearly he's a disturbed human being.
He's bothered.
But, he says what you do not get used to is losing your friends. And he talks about, I've lost so many men. Hold on a second. We've got some comments here. Oh, Eric's here. Eric is in the house. He says, good evening. I was sold on this movie based on Ben Foster and Wes Studi alone. Can't wait to see it. Eric, this is a movie that you will want to purchase. It is an extremely brutal movie, though. But It's fantastic. It's maybe one of the best movies I've seen in the past 20 years. They don't make movies like this very often.
No.
And like we said, unfortunately, it's gotten, meh kind of reviews. But, like Sydney says, I think in time, it's going to pick up and people are going to recognize it. I'm not even sure now if it equates to some sort of cult status, but
I don't think so.
no, I don't think people know about this film.
No, but they should. I mean, honestly, the kind of feeling I got when the movie ended was, I have to say, I equate it to when I watched Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
like
good.
an adult, beautiful, intelligent movie, sophisticated movie that had a deeper message that can speak to you after the movie's over.
Yeah, yeah. Which is that's not a big sell nowadays.
Yeah.
People want content nowadays. They want to go in for 2 hours and, watch big explosions and bright colors and, ooh, something shiny, over here by majority. And so you could argue there's not a market for that sort of thing. I think that, with the success of Top Gun, that's proved not necessarily to be the case. But there are people out there like you and I, Eric, and others who, have an appreciation for these types of things. And so when they come along, we want to see them. We want to talk about them. We have channels like this so we can do it, so on and so forth. Did you see Robert Eggers' The Northman?
No, I did not.
It's another one.
Is it? I've heard so many mixed things about it, and like, I only have so much time in my life for movies. Do I want to watch this one? Yeah,
you absolutely do. You absolutely do. There are so many fantastic themes in that movie. It's spectacular, and it's another movie that nobody watched. Nobody watched it. I'm sure Thor will probably make $1 billion. Because I get it. The ladies want to see Hemsworth, with his shirt off, and apparently there's a scene, where he's naked or something like that. So I get it. You got a big cast. You got Russell Crowe, you got Natalie Portman, you got Hemsworth, you got Christian Bale. I hear he's the best part of it, but it's not this Christian Bale.
No, I mean, there's a place for escapist entertainment. I totally understand that, but there also needs to be made a place for adult, intelligent entertainment as well.
Especially if you're an adult.
Yeah.
You don't want to take your 16-year-old
film, a thoughtful film where you know.
That's a good thing. Again, where they take the corporal, and Christian Bale tells him, there's kind of a providence watching over you. That he's just, he's a stable and centered, moral man, hardworking, he's a hard guy.
Yeah.
You can tell, that corporal, he's a no nonsense kind of guy. He's a good soldier. He's just taken 2 in the chest or in the shoulder or whatever it was, and tears are streaming down his face because, he's so dutiful that he feels he's letting the captain down, by not, and that makes Christian Bale cry. So these small little moments of emotion that are minimalized but show so much.
Yeah, it's the bond between these men who have been together for so long.
And we were talking about that. I talk about this all the time. This less is more approach. They're showing you just enough to let you know that it means everything.
Yeah.
And he tells him, he goes, I hate to say it, but this might be the last time I ever see you, because this is a different world from 2022. They'll probably never see each other again.
Or be able to find each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How's that going to work?
Yep.
That's never going to happen. And so, you have to be mature enough to realize, the circumstances, under which he's saying those things. And then Ben Foster, he escapes. Kidder gets killed. Ben Foster's he's a bastard in this, man. It's just a murdering bastard. He kills Kidder. Metz ends up killing him, but then Metz kills himself.
Yeah.
And what's I think what's happening to can you talk a little bit about how these people, because this is what I saw. I saw that people were having their humanity bled back into them.
I could see that. I just thought people were sort of seeing the humanity in others, which then kind of bounced back at them.
What do you mean by that? Give me an example. Can you name
So,
something?
like when Rosamund Pike first sees Wes Studi and his family, she kind of loses her shit a little bit because obviously what's just happened to her. And then as her contact and experience with them through this journey goes on and on, you know, the one Coriana Kilcher, the one from the New World.
I love her.
Yes, she gives her the dress. She wants to give her a dress because her dress is all stained with blood. So she gives
these
her
small
the dress.
kindnesses. Yeah.
Little bitty things that happen where they come together and they recognize what, you know, the humanity and also the sort of trauma each of them has gone through. Plus there's that awful incident where they get taken by the three trappers.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, and you're like, how can this just keep on going this way?
Right. So then the women are assaulted by the trappers. And, you know, so those women also, their bond gets even deeper, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just frontier life. I guess people just got, I mean, I guess it happens nowadays too, unfortunately, you know, and of course, you know, there's always violence against women, unfortunately. But, you know, people just got grabbed back then.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, someone just rode on
family with them to track them. They had people who knew how to track and find them. Because you imagine if they didn't have that, they would have been gone.
Yeah, if it had been like Rosamund Pike's husband.
Yeah, she'd never be found.
No, she'd be gone. She'd be gone. You know, she'd be left in a ditch somewhere, you know, or something like that. This movie is interspersed with action, and I think when people think of westerns, they think of action. You know, and there's more than enough, you know, evidence that, you know, there are plenty of movies like that. This isn't like that though, but it's interspersed with just enough action so that when it does happen, you're like, holy shit, like the tent fight.
Yeah.
The rescue.
He just comes out and he's like, so-and-so's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just wiping the blood off of his knife, you know, to cut her, you know, and, you know, by then she's just grabbing a hold of him, you know, because it's awful. But, you know, he keeps coming back to save her and them, you know, and, you know, Wes Studi's a part of that too. And, you know, at this point, you know, they're all just working together. Yeah. And it's this heartbreaking sort of journey. It reminds me a little bit of did you see Lonesome Dove?
Oh yeah, my mom loves that movie and book, or the TV series and book.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I own it on DVD and I own the book, but it's just the whole trip is just a disaster. You know, and it's just heartbreaking, and so is this. You know, because like Lonesome Dove, although, you know, it's a little close with Gus and Woodrow, there are no supermen here.
Yeah.
You know, there's no Clint Eastwood, you know, who just kind of rolls in to save the day. There's no John Wayne. You know, there's nobody here that's larger than life.
No, and Christian Bale is the last man standing from his group at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
The lone survivor out of everyone with Rosamund Pike and the little boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable that, you know, everybody gets wiped off the table in one form or another. But before, you know, you go to that, you have the death of Wes Studi. You know, where they find and the cinema. You're absolutely. We didn't talk about this at all. The cinematography. Cinematography is kind of your thing. Do you want to talk about that some?
Oh, I just think that the way that the vistas and the forest and the landscape, I mean, you really get this idea that this place, I mean, it's beautiful, but you also get the sense it's dangerous, it's mysterious. I mean, you get these epic sunsets, and the
Yeah.
wide open plains, and these people are like little dots on their horses moving through the plains. It's just so beautiful. But you could also see, like, could you imagine yourself being out there with
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
around you? Then, yeah,
Then.
back then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no way to contact anyone. It's just you
Yeah.
and your little group making your way through. I mean, it's actually kind of terrifying when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Because you're so small, and the landscape itself is completely indifferent as to whether or not you survive.
Yeah, and it's shot beautifully. This film. I'm thinking of like what other film recently have I seen that looks so great, and I can't think of one
No.
shot
You know,
recently.
I can only think of other westerns.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah,
Maybe like a
to make
Dances with
sure.
Wolves kind of thing, or something like that. But no, no, nothing in the western genre. And we were
Yeah.
talking about other movies that you were thinking about for your channel. Um, what were we talking about?
Well, Hell or High
Oh,
Water was beautiful too. The way that sort of desolateness,
which one?
sort of Hell or High Water,
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah.
desolate of the play. I mean, that was beautiful
West
too.
Texas. They're in the
Yeah,
Panhandle.
that sort of, and the griminess of like the decay of the small towns. That looked really good.
Yeah, yeah. But this brutality is, again, I think bleeding the humanity back into Blocker, into Christian Bale. When Ben Foster tells him, you ain't who I thought you were.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
like,
good thing.
that's a
Yeah,
good thing.
it's a
Yeah,
good
that's
thing.
absolutely a good thing. In a way, it's kind of like Christian Bale, seeing a reflection, kind of holding up the mirror. And you can tell he's kind of repelled,
Yeah,
by what he sees in Ben Foster, and Ben Foster thinks that they're, identical, but they're not. And that he starts to care for these people, and they're working together to survive. And it's not at all, um, like what Christian Bale thought it was either.
yeah,
And that when Wes Studi says to Rosamund Pike, you within me, I within you, that they've gone through so many things, and to some extent, things that go back decades, that they're a part of each other.
yeah.
And maybe that's the tragedy of it too.
Did you
That they've
notice? Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no that that's the tragedy of it, that there is interconnectedness, in humanity, but they've been slaughtering each other.
Yeah, and it's all seems so purposeless. Like why?
Yeah, and all of that just to come back and to sort of become friends and almost to love each other at the end.
Yeah. Did you notice how two times before the end, Christian Bale tries to tell his superiors about the men he's lost? He starts naming their names and he gets cut off. And then finally at the
Yeah,
end, he sits down with Wes Studi right before he dies, and he tells him, he's like, that was my friend, and he names their names, and Wes Studi lets him finish. He goes
yeah,
through that whole thing. And I was
yeah,
like, that was beautiful. That was like one of
yeah,
those full circle kind of moments.
yeah. Stephen Lang is the Colonel.
Yeah,
Stephen Lang is the Colonel. And I thought he was great.
yeah.
Cause I love Stephen Lang. I'm a huge Stephen Lang fan, and he's just like, I just don't care how you feel about it. You're gonna
Yeah, like,
go.
go on, whatever. Get out
This
of
is
here.
gonna happen, and you're gonna do it.
Yeah,
And that was also one of the other things, that a seed that's planted very early. There's nothing else for him to do when this is over with.
yeah,
Stephen Lang tells him that there's very little for an old captain to do besides losing his mind. Which he's on the verge of anyway.
yeah,
And you think he's got no one, he's got no family, he's got nothing. He's just gonna go live by himself. He's gonna end up like Metz. He's gonna end up blowing his brains out one day.
it's like Jeff Bridges from Hell or High Water.
Yeah,
About to go into retirement with nothing to look forward to.
right. Absolutely nothing, except this man is far worse than Jeff.
Yeah, oh
Captain
yeah,
Blocker
yeah,
is in far worse shape than than Jeff Bridges' character.
Yeah.
And so, it plants the idea early. He's like, let me let you in on a secret. There's going to be very little for you to do except to sit on the porch and whistle and whittle and rock in your chair and wait for your pension check. That's going to be the big thing every month, waiting for your pension check to come in once a month. So, eventually, we get to the end of the movie, and we're glossing over a lot here. For people that are in the stream, hold on, we got another comment here. Ben always gives a good performance as Eric, but is best as a villain. 30 Days of Night and Hostage, for example. I'll definitely see this now if Mike's calling him a bastard. Yes, he's an absolute bastard.
Awful.
And that's a kind description, actually. So yeah. But this ironic and tragic and wonderful thing happens, and that they become reconciled before the end. And like you said, Wes Studi lets him finish. But what he also gets to say is that he acknowledges that Wes Studi had friends too,
right,
who were killed. It's no longer a resentment. It's an acknowledgement that we were young and we were awful, and we've all paid an awful price, for being awful to each other.
Yeah.
Which just makes that one review I read a little while ago just seem so out of touch. I don't. Some 19-year-old must have written that or something like that. I don't get that.
Yeah, but you have that moment, and then he passes away.
Yeah.
But then you have that. Then you have that moment when they're burying him, and the cowboys come up.
And they are just. I put that in my notes as because I write things in bullet points, and I called that the absolute worst. And
Yes.
What I saw, what I saw what did you see when you saw that? Go ahead.
Well, I noticed more Christian Bale. He just seemed like, why? Like when he has to know that he's gonna have to deal with these people. I just saw why am I having to do this? Why are we having to go through this again? Why? I just felt like he's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to deal with these people.
It's not going to end. And what I saw was that Christian Bale probably saw an old version of himself, so to speak. The old, intolerant, bigoted, hateful American.
Yeah.
Which those guys were to the core. Entitled, they deserved every awful thing that happened to them. And, it's just, what got me was the look on Bale's face when he sees that he and Rosamund Pike and the boy are the only three left.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, Corianka Filcher is gone. Adam Beach is gone. The other living woman, I can't remember her. I don't know her real name. She's gone. And again, it's just another example. For what?
Yeah.
For what? Just to be cruel, and just to be murderous and just to be evil.
But I thought also that it was interesting and important that when Rosamund Pike finally did actually pull the trigger with bullets in the gun, it was on those guys. Those are the guys that she ended up, killing.
That's a great point. I hadn't noticed that. It wasn't against Native Americans,
right?
Who she's been fighting. It wasn't. Yeah, it turns out to be against other Americans.
Yeah.
Who deserved it, and I was so happy.
Shoot him.
When Christian Bale disembowels that guy.
Yes.
It's just fabulous. It's just fantastic. And, then we come to the end of the movie, Last Call Chicago. Yeah. And he's just so stoic. He's been reading Julius Caesar his whole life, and going through all these things. And would it have been a better ending if they had split?
I thought about that. but I'm glad he got on the train because he was giving himself a chance.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Me too. I was not I was not displeased in the least. It's
Mm-mm.
just a question.
Yeah,
You know,
I
because I'm like,
think
oh, that's it. I did not feel that that was a cheap ending, or
not at all.
no,
They earned
no,
it.
that
They earned. Oh, my microphone just dropped. It got too excited. They earned that ending. They earned that ending. He earned getting on that train with her.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, because they had nobody but each other.
Yeah,
There's no one that any of the three of them could have spoken to and made them understood what had happened, but those three.
especially going to Chicago.
Yeah, you know, um, and he walks away, and you think he's just because it is in character for him to just completely walk away, even
Yeah,
though slowly, a little bit at a time, they've been getting a little closer, a little closer. There's that one time in the tent where she kind of rolls him over after, he's just lost Mets, but nothing really happens. It's just kind of to comfort each other.
yeah.
But I mean, it ends on a definite optimistic note, that they're going to be okay. He's going to be okay
At least it's in
because
his
you get
side.
yeah, I think without her, he is going to, he'll just end up killing himself. He'll end up like Metz,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Um, but I mean, what a film! What a film!
four
You don't
stars. 4 out of 4 stars.
4 out of 4. Okay,
Four
I
out of
would go
four.
with 5. I go 5.
Oh,
Do
five
you
out of
do
five. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5? Okay, I do 5 stars. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's something I'll do for now, and I'll start during the movie. I'll ask people for their review at the end: 5 stars, 3 stars, 3.5, whatever. But yeah, I would give this a 5. Um, it's a bit of a crime that people aren't talking about this movie at all. Nobody was talking. No one's talking about Hell or High Water.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, hell, people barely talk about Sicario, which was, his other movie. And then he's got that third movie that he's done on the plains, Wind River, I think,
Oh yeah, I
and
need to
that's a
watch that. That's on Hulu, I think.
Netflix.
Netflix.
Oh,
Okay.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
on
and
one.
that's a
It's on one of those. It's on one of those streaming services. I need to watch that.
yeah. It's these are a fantastic couple of films that we've been covering here. I appreciate having you on here because it shifts my thread, so to speak, away from what we typically do, and then these tend to be more adult based conversations, um, you know, and that's a good thing. And even if it's just for the purposes of, getting this film out in the hope that one other person like Eric, is going to watch it now, is
Oh,
going to
watch it,
watch it
Eric.
now.
Watch it. Watch it tonight, Eric. It's amazing.
Yeah,
You will not be
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
It's good stuff, and even better, pick yourself up a copy. Pick yourself up a copy. It's worthwhile.
Yeah. And you told me I would like it better than Hell or High Water, and I love that. And you were right. I do.
Yeah,
I do like it better.
this show is becoming something that specializes in films that people either don't know about or just don't talk about, and that's a good thing. I just wish that more people were watching the show, but you just got to keep at it with it, and
Yeah.
that's the whole key to it. I Is there anything that we missed that you think we need to get into? I'm perfectly willing to continue to talk about this film. Is there something you wanted to?
No, I just think that it is going to be a film that I am going to definitely recommend to people when they ask me, "Hey, what should I watch?" I mean, it's going to be up there, probably the number one film that, especially people who like adult, thought provoking,
Yeah,
intelligent filmmaking. So this is
yeah,
going to be the one I recommend.
yeah. There's great stuff out there, and this is at the very top of it.
Hmm.
Okay, I think this is as good a place as any to bring it to a close. My thanks to Sydney from Cinema Cities. Sydney, plug
Yes.
something.
Um.
What do you got coming up?
Oh well, it's going to be a minute, but I'm working on this very long video on the career of actor Sterling Hayden.
Okay,
So,
that is niche. That is niche. Okay.
so yeah, he was in Doctor Strangelove. He was, Jack the Ripper in Doctor
Hmm.
Strangelove. He was in the OSS. He is a staple of film noir. He named names to the communist and during the communist witch hunt. He's a very interesting character.
Okay.
Sailed around the world before he was 20 years old, and in a sailing schooner. Would prefer to have been on the sea instead of in the movie. So
Old school.
I'm yes, very much. So I'm working on that, and that I'm hoping to have that done by Sunday, next Sunday.
Okay. Okay. Oh, well, we'll look forward to that. And where can people find that video once you've completed it?
Oh, it will be on the Cinema City's YouTube page. So
Okay.
that's where that'll be.
And you should absolutely check out her page. She's got some really interesting stuff. I think you and I connected over just a couple of comments regarding The English Patient.
Yes.
But
Another
I've
good
just,
movie that no one talks about.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We were talking about Ray Fiennes yesterday in Red Dragon, and how he can be terrifying, which we learned
Yes.
early on from Schindler's List,
Yes.
where he paid Amon Goeth. But yeah, I mean, right after that, he's went right into like The English Patient, which is just that's what peak performance looks like. Like everything is firing on like all cylinders. Everybody's just going for it. It's fantastic. Okay, that does it for the show here tonight. My thanks to Sydney once again, and hang on after we break because I want to talk to you a little bit because I always want to have you back on.
Okay.
Next week. Oh God. Okay. Speaking of things that are not adult, I will be on. Actually, I'm going to be having a discussion on Tuesday with the Goraphobes YouTube channel. And we're going to be talking about a certain director. We're going to be talking about Brian De Palma. So that's Tuesday at 8 p.m. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of De Palma, and he's got a lot of great stuff. You can talk De Palma for a very long time, and I intend to. Let's see. Then on Wednesday, oh boy, speaking of things that are not adult, we're going to be talking about Catherine Bigelow's 1990s classic Point Break. With Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey, the antithesis of adult conversation. And then we're going to, if you thought that was the Mount Everest, we're going like right up to the mountains of madness out of Lovecraft. We're going to be talking on Thursday about Kong versus Godzilla. So I'm working the spectrum of film next week from De Palma all the way to Kong versus Godzilla. It's going to be a good time. It always is. My thanks once again. Stick around. I want to talk to you about getting you back on. Thanks to everybody. Like the channel, subscribe. If you stuck through to the end, I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.